going into a completely different field.
Tisha tweets into you, Dr. Paul, what can the next generation of people who want to defend liberty in politics do to be effective?
Well, first, they need to understand the freedom philosophy, what liberty is all about, where it comes from, and what it really means, and understand that they understand it well enough to be able to explain it, because they will meet the demagogues. Believe me, if you're a free market person, you hate poor people and you will let them starve in the street and never give them any medicine, not realizing that it is the welfare system and the socialist system where people end up not having enough to eat and not having good medical care. So it is understanding that and realizing that freedom is controversial because you allow a lot of activities that seem to be immoral, and people will be critical and say, "Oh, you mean you'd let people smoke marijuana cigarettes? Oh, this is horrible. You don't want to do that." But you have to remember that if you legalize something and allow people to make their own choice, it doesn't mean you endorse the activity, and that's a big difference. It's if you understand this, then the people aren't frightened by it. And I think studying it, understanding it, believing in it, and knowing how to answer the negative comments about it, because they're very serious, and people who care about people, how they're doing, morally. Well, we've got to make these people better morally, and we have to make sure nobody starves in the street. So if you understand that, and then what you do after that is going to be up to the individuals. Everybody's going to have a chance. I mean, I think if a person's in teaching or journalism, on TV, teaching, anything, or start an organization or run for office, it depends on the individual. And I get to ask the question so often on a college campus. They say, "What should I do?" I say, "Whatever you want to do. Do what you want." And but know what you're talking about, know what the philosophy is, and knowing how wonderful it is, and find out how untested it's been. We've had such a short period of time. If you look at all recorded history of thousands of years, it's only been a couple hundred years where they've really talked about personal liberty, industrialization of our world, and the improvement of society. It's just been a short period of time. Everything else has been authoritarianism. The individual wasn't important. And so I think we've only had a little taste. We had a great period of time in our early history, and it was fantastic. More liberty, more prosperity than any place else in the world. And now we've given up on it. So, but I think that we can keep moving in the right direction, moving as long as we know what the principles are, and that people are talked into endorsing these principles, and they shouldn't be intimidated by the demagogues and the people who pump out the war propaganda. Why we have to always go to war, to save the world, or we always have to raise the taxes in order to make sure that the middle class is doing well. At the same time, realizing we're destroying the middle class and making the poor poorer, and all we're doing is rewarding the rich. When they realize that, then they'll find a job.
Before we got started, you mentioned that people under 25 are more likely to recognize you than people who are 55.
Yes, at least they're more likely to come up to me. Maybe some of the others will, but maybe if they're 35 or 40 or 50, maybe they're more reserved. They might recognize, but they don't come up. But the young people will come up to me, and they're always, very, very polite. I just think, there's a lot of talk about, the younger generation, how terrible they are, and they'll show you some pictures of, the wild things that they do. But I'll tell you what, the ones that come out to our rallies and our meetings, I am really impressed. That's what gives me high hope that we do have a generation very interested in these issues that we've been talking about. They've already studied it, and they're already very engaged. I mean, I have kids that are 14 years old, and they're dragging their parents. They dragged their parents to my congressional office, and it was the kids that wanted to come in. And I'd look at them and say, they would know about the Federal Reserve, and they're reading all about this. I said, "How old are they?" I'm 14 years old. I said, "Well, I didn't even have the vaguest idea what was going on when I was 14, let alone what they're doing." So they're very, very engaged, and that's why we shouldn't be too pessimistic about what's happening.